Hello and welcome to our Meet the Candidates Forum. I'm Ashley Dowdy. Tonight we'll meet the candidates for Louisiana Public Service Commission for District 5. There are 4 in total, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, vying for the seat left vacant by Foster Campbell. Before we begin, though, let's go over some ground rules. Democrats will go first, and after a short break, we will have the Republican candidates. At the beginning, we will give each candidate 1 minute for their opening statements. Each will be asked a total of 5 questions, and then they will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond. We will also be asking 2 lightning round questions, where candidates will have 30 seconds to respond. At the end, candidates will be given 1 more minute for their closing statements. Now let's meet our Democratic candidates. We are joined now by James Edward Green of Shreveport and Austin Lawson of Bossier City. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Mr. Green, we will start with your opening statement.
I'm Pastor James Green of the Union Mission Baptist Church and also City Councilman of District Alpha in Shreveport, Louisiana. I have a 7 ways to serve people first agenda. I bring a new light to public service, protect the people, protect the pocketbook, and protect the power. I have the experience. I'm ready to do the job. I believe that it's a calling for me, and I thank you all for putting this on tonight. May God bless you, may keep you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green. Now, Mr. Lawson, you have 1 minute.
Hey, folks. My name's Austin Lawson, and I'm running for the Public Service Commission. I'm a bartender. I'm an activist in the Shreveport City area, or Shreveport-Bossier City area. And the reason I'm running is very simple. I'm running because I know what utilities really mean to so many people. When I was growing up in Coshada, the utilities weren't always there. They were something we couldn't take for granted. When I grew up, I had to drop out of college so I could pick up more shifts so I could make sure I can make ends meet. And that's when I learned what utilities really meant. Struggle. So many people feel like they're falling behind, which is why I have crafted policy to laser focus this. Things like tying your electricity rate to your income. It's addressing the data center concerns and regulating them to make sure they're serving the people. It's about bringing transparency back to our government. And I know these things because I am a person who is concerned about all those things, which is why I'm running for this seat.
Thank you so much. Now on to our first question of the night, and we will start with Austin. 4 large data centers are under construction or announced for North Louisiana, including 3 in Shreveport-Bossier and 1 of the world's largest in Richland Parish near Monroe. These facilities consume large amounts of electricity, land, and water, making them controversial across the country. Incumbent LPSC member Foster Campbell has supported these North Louisiana centers for the jobs and the opportunity they promise. What will be your approach to data centers as commissioner?
You know, I've been all over the northern part of the state on the campaign, and the one thing I continue to hear over and over again is that people are very concerned about these data centers. People are scared of rising utility costs that are associated with them. People are scared of impacts on our environment. People see the way these things are being pushed through different parts of our government, and they're sick of it. So if I'm elected to that position, what I'm going to do is fight them. I'm going to regulate them. I'm going to make sure they're paying their fair share in terms of electricity. I'm making sure they have environmental regulations put on them. So things like our water isn't contaminated, our grid doesn't fall apart, our animals aren't driven away by the noise. People can continue to live in the areas where they're built in because the noise is regulated. And it's simple why. Because these data centers represent a threat to a lot of people. We have a lot of people leaving Louisiana. I'm not against investment. A lot of people talk about investment when it comes to these data centers, and I think that's something we need. However, the biggest investment we have, the biggest resource we have is the people here. If we allow these data centers to go unchecked, it is going to continue to destroy our communities, especially since they currently have no involvement in these things. It's going to continue to destroy those communities, and it's going to continue to drive people out of the state, which is one of the biggest problems that we are having here in Louisiana.
Mr. Green, the floor is yours.
Well, I believe that we should hold their feet to the fire. I believe that in Shreveport, SWEPCO built a $100 million grid, and I believe that the data centers ought to be connected to that, not connected to the regular power source. And we got to hold their feet to the fire. The promises that they made, we got to make sure that they keep them. They said the water is recycled, so they won't be using a whole lot of water out of our lakes. and we just got to hold their feet to the fire. They told us a story as to how it was going to be, and exactly as to what they've said on paper, what we have on paper. I believe that we should hold their feet to the fire.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Our next question, Commissioner Campbell said in 2023 that North Louisiana customers of Entergy should not pay higher monthly bills to help Entergy recover from storms that mostly hit South Louisiana. Entergy argues that all customers on its grid from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arkansas line must pay the same for storm recovery. How will your approach to recovery of storm damage on the Entergy grid be? How will you approach it? Mr. Green, we'll start with you.
Well, there are four other commissioners, and I would get with them to make sure that they pay their own bill. You know, if you dance by the music, you got to pay the piper. I don't think it's fair that it's their business and they want the customers to pay all of the bills. Because families shouldn't have to go about wondering how they're going to put food on their table and against how they're going to pay their bills. So I think that they should pay their bills, and along with me working with the other commissioners, I believe that we should make sure that they pay the bill and not the customers.
Now, Mr. Lawson, your response.
You know, I'm really glad you asked me this question. And I like the way you phrased it, because SWEPCO and Entergy and all of these power suppliers want to make sure that all of their customers are charged for these things. While I think none of their customers should be charged by these things or for these things, the reality is the reason our energy grid grows out so often during these storms is because it is neglected. We have wooden power poles everywhere that are falling down. We have wires that are disconnected, hanging, a danger to people. And the reality is SWEPCO has not, Entergy, any of these utility monopolies have not stepped up to the plate and actually done what they need to do to make sure that our energy grid is reliable. So not only would I make sure that none of the storm repair damage costs gets passed off onto the ratepayers in the form of rate increases, on top of that, I would push the energy monopolies to upgrade the infrastructure on their own dime, because let's be real, they make plenty of money. They are utility monopolies. We give them the exclusive right to operate with no competition in our state. There's got to be some cost to that. We need to make sure that they are paying to repair their stuff, and that if they don't want to have to pay to repair it so much, that they're going to actually upgrade the infrastructure and make sure that they're doing it on their own dime.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Our next question, Entergy, Louisiana's largest electric company, operates 2 nuclear plants in Louisiana and a third on the Mississippi River at Port Gibson, Mississippi. The plants are all 40 years old or older and nearing retirement. Entergy, with support from the current LPSC, hopes to use federal subsidies to help build new nuclear plants or refurbish old ones. Utilities in Louisiana are entitled to charge ratepayers for investments in power plants. Should ratepayers pay more to keep aging nuclear plants in operation and or build new nuclear power plants in Louisiana? Mr. Lawson, you have 90 seconds for your response.
So first of all, I absolutely support upgrading our energy grid. I support upgrading our power generation. Things like nuclear are great. We need to be investing in things like solar, things like wind. However, there is something that I caught there that I want to make clear. This needs to be done at the cost of the energy monopoly. They are the one making the money off of this power. They are the one providing the power. They are the one who is taking in the profit, who is doing the business. They need to be the ones paying for it. People continue to see over and over again here in Louisiana, their rates go up and up and up, and they see absolutely nothing in return for it. It's time that SWEPCO and Entergy and these other utility monopolies pay back what they owe us. These nuclear plants are a good thing. More power is a good thing. However, the ratepayers have continued to fork over money to these energy monopolies year after year after year. The money that they have forked over could already have paid for these things. It's just we need to make sure we're prioritizing where they're spending their money and make sure that they are the ones spending it and not our ratepayers.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Green, it's your turn.
Yeah, I believe that they should use their high-powered lobbyists, and I think they should find all the federal money that they can find. I don't think that ratepayers should pay a dime into it. I mean, I just feel like, you know, romance without finance ain't no fun. So I just believe that they should pay their own bill because it's their company, and ratepayers shouldn't. We already got to struggle to pay what we're paying, And so, no, I don't think that ratepayers should be able to pay a dime from that. They should pay their own money and pay their own way.
Thank you, Mr. Green. PSC members like to say Louisiana has some of the lowest electric rates in the country. While that is true, what they don't say is that due to our heat, humidity, and poor housing stock, Louisiana has some of the nation's highest electric bills. That, plus our high rate of poverty, means Louisiana is considered an energy insecure state. Say an energy customer is disconnected for non-pay. It's 8 p.m. on a summer night, and the temperature is 90 degrees. This customer calls you to have their service reconnected. What would you say? Mr. Green, it's your response.
I would get on the phone with the people in charge and make sure that I'd have numbers, emergency numbers, that when customers like that come about, that I would be able to call the president of the company or whoever is in charge to let them know that they shouldn't cut this individual electricity off, because it's very important. You don't know if they have sickness. You don't know if they're on dialysis. You have no idea what they're going on. And I believe that there ought to be a moratorium set that, in fact, that at certain times they cannot cut it off, and they should give people a reasonable time to get their money, because the bills are already so high. And I just think that they should not be able to cut it off. But I would be on the phone, whether it's in midnight or before day or whatever, pleading the customer's case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Lawson, what is your response?
The last thing I would tell that customer right before I hung up is, I'll call you right back. I would call the people operating this who made these decisions, and I would tell them, how could you do this? Nobody in this state deserves to have their power cut off. We are seeing the most extreme weather we've ever seen here in Louisiana, the hottest hots, the coldest colds, and people need that electricity to make sure they can survive through that. So the first thing I would ask them is, how could you cut this person off? Why would your business think that's okay? You serve us, the people. You do not serve your own pocketbook. You need to find a way to reconnect this ratepayer. You need to find a way to make sure you are not cutting off ratepayers. Because if you are not doing that and you continue to cut off ratepayers, then I'm going to have to step in as a public service commissioner and introduce legislation to make sure that you are not cutting off ratepayers. If you're not going to do it out of the goodness of your own heart, then I'm going to make you do it.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. The combination of low costs, concern for climate change, and growing demand for sustainable energy by corporations and consumers has made solar and wind the fastest growing energy sources in America. Louisiana power companies defy this trend and remain heavily dependent on natural gas to make electricity. Will you insist that Louisiana electric companies test electricity markets and choose the most affordable fuel to make power for us? Mr. Lawson.
Absolutely, I would. We need to be investing in these green, new renewable energies. We need to bring our beautiful Louisiana from being a state that is held back by the oil and gas industry into one that is leading the way in America to renewable energy, leading the future into these green energy types. And the reason we're not doing that is simple. It's because our system is bought out by the oil and gas lobby. There are a lot of people with a lot of money who lobby our politicians, which is why I do not take any of their money. I reject it wholeheartedly. I don't even talk to them on the phone. I don't go to their dinners. I'm not interested in taking their money. That is why we've continued to see a backslide into more and more oil and gas investment, less and less investment into our renewable energy sectors, which day after day, we see more research, more innovation coming out, making these things more and more effective. The question shouldn't be, are we going to do these things if we're elected to the Public Service Commission? It's a good question, but the better question is, why hasn't this been done already? Follow the money, and you'll figure out why.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Green, it's your turn.
Yes, I believe that solar energy, any energy that is free, is good energy. And I just believe that they should have their customers to be able to have free energy as much as possible. Solar energy. They should also have more insulation in the ceiling, insulation in the windows, whatever it is that could help the customer. I believe that they should be doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Now, gentlemen, we are moving on to our lightning round. You each will have 30 seconds to respond. Our first question. Commissioner Campbell investigated jail telephone companies and found that calls from prisons and jails cost 30 times more than calls made on the outside. The LPSC sets the rates for inmate telephone calls. Do you believe prison phone rates should be reduced? Mr. Green, you are first.
Yes, I believe they should be reduced. In fact, there should be a way that not only reduced, there should be a period of time that they should be free because one, they are in prison, they don't have a livelihood, and possibly the folk that got to send them some money, they are also struggling. So, not just reduced, I think that there ought to be a way that they should be free because, they got to hustle to get out. Sometimes in life, bad things happen to good people, and everybody should have a chance to be able to communicate with their family, communicate with their attorneys. And I just think it's very unfair for them to put a high rate on prison's phone call when they are in prison. Free is for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Lawson.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of lowering prison call rates and even having the goal of eliminating them altogether. I talk about this on my website. It's something we've advocated for since day one. This is something that the Public Service Commission has already done. During the Biden admin, we continued to cut prison call rates. They were brought back up. There's no reason we can't bring them back down to that level, even lower, maybe even free. It reduces recidivism. It keeps people's support networks going. It makes our society better. It is a win for the person, the incarcerated person. It's a win for their family, and it's a win for society.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Our next question. Many rural water systems in North Louisiana need substantial upgrades to ensure plentiful, clean water, but they often don't have the money, won't raise rates, and refuse to merge with larger systems. What should the PSC do? Mr. Lawson, you are first.
Well, first of all, it's understandable why people wouldn't want their rates raised because, again, they continue to see their rates go up and up and up. What the PSC needs to do is they need to make sure that we are using PSC funds to upgrade these people's water infrastructure. Because let me tell you something, folks, it's not just the rural areas, and they are impacted pretty badly, but Shreveport just got given a rating of F on their drinkable water. It's not just a problem with the rural areas. It's a problem of this. It's a problem of the entire state, and it's something the PSC needs to tackle directly through direct policy and through direct funding to make sure these people's water systems are upgraded and that it's actually drinkable.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Green, your response.
Yes, I believe they should be upgraded. And of course, by me being on the council, old systems, whereas you need money to upgrade. And then with our system in Shreveport, if depending on the contractor that you got, then they mess the system up entirely. But I believe they should be upgraded. And all of the federal dollars that a city can receive, I just think they should be able to get the money to upgrade the system.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And Mr. Green, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
I am Pastor James Green. I've been endorsed by the Democratic Party. I bring a new light to public service, putting people first. As I've said before, protect the people, protect the pocketbook, and protect the power. Lower bills, reliable infrastructure, equality for North Louisiana and underserved communities, accountability, oversight of utility companies, expanding broadband and internet. I just believe that if in fact they even raise their rates, they ought to raise their standards. If your electricity go off, then it ought to come back on. And I just believe that I'm prepared for this job. I have the experience for this job. I will make sure that I put God first. He says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not on thy own understanding. In all thy ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct your path. My service has been putting God first. And when you put him first, you'll never be last. My number is number 19. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Lawson, you now have 1 minute.
Y'all, I'm Austin Lawson, and I'm running for this position as a ratepayer for ratepayers. I wasn't in politics before this. I'm running because this is policy that helps people. It's policy that we need. If you would, imagine a future where you open your electricity bill and it's half because the Public Service Commission has tied your electricity rate to your income. Imagine the data centers that you are concerned about have been regulated because you have a Public Service Commission who's in the community, who has fought these data centers already, is used to this fight, and is fighting them at the regulatory level. Imagine a Public Service Commission and a government that you feel represents you, that you feel is transparent, that you feel like you can communicate with and addresses your concerns. I know that's a world that I want to live in, folks. And if that's a world that you want to live in, then vote for Austin Lawson for your public service commissioner on May 16th. Early voting has already started. Thank you all so much for having me. Thank you, folks at the studio, for having us in, and we really appreciate the opportunity.
Mr. Green and Mr. Lawson, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and good luck to you both on Election Day. We are going to take a short break, and when we return, we will meet the two Republicans also vying for the position. Stay with us. And welcome back, everyone. Now let's meet our Republican candidates. We are joined by John E. Atkins of Shreveport and Aiden C. Joyner of West Monroe. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all.
Mr. Joyner, we will start with your opening statement.
Thank you all for having me this evening. My name is Aiden Joyner. I'm from West Monroe. As you might notice, I'm pretty young. I'm a student at ULM. I'm a political science major, and I'm also involved in the College Republicans of ULM, Turning Point USA at ULM, and Students for Life at ULM. I'm running for Public Service Commissioner of District 5 to bring two things, and that's transparency and accountability to utility companies. It's time for you to know what your money's going towards, and it's time for you to have an avenue of communication so that you can express your concerns with utility companies and with Public Service Commission. We're going to do that through several things. One of the things I think can bring accountability is through increasing competition in the utility industry and breaking up the monopoly that we currently have set up. But if those things sound good to you, I just urge you to cast your vote for Aiden Joyner on the May 16th Public Service Commission election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. And now, Mr. Atkins, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is John Atkins. I'm a candidate for Public Service Commissioner. I am a Shreveport-based businessman, and I'm a sitting member of the Caddo Parish Commission in Caddo Parish. I've traveled North Louisiana for the last 12 months, speaking to various people about their concerns regarding electric utilities, water, natural gas, and sewer. And during those conversations, it's become clear that people's main concern is the cost of their utilities and the reliability of their utilities. It's very simple. They want low cost, highly reliable utilities. And if I'm elected to the Public Service Commissioner, that will be my area of focus. To me, a strong Public Service Commissioner should have three traits. One, they need to understand the industries that they're regulating. Two, they need to understand their constituents. And three, they need to understand economics. Earlier in my career, I worked for the electric utility space. I have some understanding of the electric utility space, so I'll bring that knowledge to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Now on to our first question, and we will start with you, Mr. Atkins. 4 large data centers are under construction or announced for North Louisiana, including 3 in Shreveport, Bossier, and one of the world's largest in Richland Parish near Monroe. These facilities consume large amounts of electricity, land, and water, making them controversial across the country. Incumbent LPSC member Foster Campbell has supported these North Louisiana centers for the jobs and the opportunity they promise. What will be your approach to data centers as commissioner?
Well, I'm supportive of the data centers. I think that we need them in our economy to help grow our economy. The state is constantly looking for new avenues of growth, and this appears to be a good fit for our community. They bring in jobs, several hundred jobs for each facility, and those jobs typically are about 150% of the average compensation for residents in Louisiana. So I think we need those new jobs in our community. However, we must ensure that we do these developments responsibly. We cannot allow the cost of the data centers to add additional cost to the monthly bill for residential customers. So we must maintain the residential customers at their current level or lower. We can't let the data centers have a negative impact on the rate or the reliability of services to the residential customer. We must also be careful to protect our water resources. We must look at closed loop systems where we're not overusing our water and we're not injecting harmful chemicals back into our water system at the end of the process. So I'm for data centers, but I want to make sure that we maintain that they bear the cost of their additional generation and that we maintain costs at a flat or lower level for residential customers and we protect our environment.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Joyner, your response.
I'm 100% for the economic possibilities that data centers bring. I think it's a great idea to strengthen our economy, to bring more businesses to our economy. And while they only employ a couple hundred people on paper, those couple hundred people turn into a couple hundred families, which turns into a large business diversity aspect for the area. However, we must hold those data centers and the companies that they bring with them accountable. We must hold them to the promises that they make. Those companies promised when they first came here that they weren't going to negatively affect ratepayers or negatively affect our grid, and we've got to hold them accountable to that. We can't just give the utility companies increases to compensate for those big utility companies and the amount of energy that they're using without checking to see what they're doing and checking to see what we had agreed to first. If they agreed to not bring rates up that would negatively affect our ratepayers, then that's what we must hold them to. We must also hold them to their promise to not negatively impact our grid and our grid strength. If that takes them producing some of their own power through power plants at those locations, then we can explore that also. But the number one thing is we can't let the opportunity for economic growth negatively affect our ratepayers and negatively affect our grid that is already struggling.
Thank you. Our next question, Commissioner Campbell said in 2023 that North Louisiana customers of Entergy should not pay higher monthly bills to help Entergy recover from storms that mostly hit South Louisiana. Entergy argues that all customers on its grid, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arkansas line, must pay for the same storm recovery. How will your approach to recovery of storm damage be on the energy grid? Mr. Joyner, you go first.
Yeah, so that's a thing that's been plaguing our state for a little while now. We've seen it with Katrina. We've seen it with several other hurricanes, where the south part of the state was very heavily impacted, but the north part didn't necessarily get as much. And it's hard as a resident of North Louisiana to open up your utility bill for the next month and see that you have a massive increase in your monthly bill for a storm recovery fee that you saw no effects of. So the first thing, we need to explore how we can mitigate that so that people who weren't affected by the storm are not paying for those increased rates. And I think we can do that through a couple of things. And the first thing is preventative maintenance before those storms hit. That can look like several things. We can start replacing power poles before they break and things like that. We can also start exploring underground utilities and what that will cost and things like that. If it's cost effective, if it's going to strengthen our grid, then we can explore that. Some things that I also like are vegetation management programs, which help mitigate damage to our electrical lines and things like that are above ground, which that is one of the most obvious damages of those storms with trees falling on lines and things like that. But the number one thing that I'm concerned with is making sure that residents who are not negatively affected by those storms, making sure that their rates are not significantly higher because of those storms.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Now, Mr. Atkins, your response.
Thank you. I know it's difficult for those of us in North Louisiana to feel that we're carrying the water for storm recovery in South Louisiana, but we must remember we're all in the same system. And the South Louisiana people, when I've expressed concern about this to the South Louisiana people, they say, "Well, what about the fact that your utilities are more spread out than ours? Your service areas are more spread out; they're more expensive to serve." So they raise a legitimate point there. And then we've had an ice storm here in the North Louisiana area that will require significant cost recovery to improve and recover from that. So we all have our demons that we face. We all suffer from situations like this. But when it comes to cost recovery and resilience, I think there's an innovative approach that instead of a utility using equity to pay for those upgrades and those repairs, you remember in a utility they get like a 9.5% return on that equity. I think it'd be a much more effective methodology, and it's done in other states. In some parts of Louisiana, it'd be better to securitize those storm recovery costs. When I say securitize, you actually borrow money against a program to repair the system, and the borrowing cost would be much less than the interest that you'd pay on the borrowing is much less than the return on equity that the utility would receive. So it's a much cheaper way of handling those recovery costs.
Thank you. Entergy, Louisiana's largest electric company, operates 2 nuclear plants in Louisiana and a third on the Mississippi River at Port Gibson, Mississippi. The plants are all 40 years old or older and nearing retirement. Entergy, with support from the current LPSC, hopes to use federal subsidies to help build new nuclear plants or refurbish old ones. Utilities in Louisiana are entitled to charge ratepayers for investments in power plants. Should ratepayers pay more to keep aging nuclear plants in operation and or build new nuclear power plants in Louisiana? Mr. Atkins, you have 90 seconds for your response.
Well, nuclear plants are a significant part of our current generation mix. If you look at our generation mix, about 72% of the power in the state of Louisiana is provided by gas turbine generated power. 20% is provided by nuclear. That leaves 8% for renewables and other sources. So nuclear is key to our generation mix currently. So we will need to strongly consider investment to preserve that nuclear portion of our generation mix. I would favor a refurbishment of the facilities, not a total rebuilding of the facilities. Of course, safety would always be paramount. We'd want to make sure that we were safe and secure and that the power would be reliable. But in my mind, a renovation would be a much more cost-effective route. Now, the utility might not want to do that because remember, you've got to think about incentives, and utilities are incentivized to spend as much equity as possible because they receive a return on that equity. So they might lobby for brand new facilities, but I'd want to have an engineering study done and a civil engineering study done to ensure that to evaluate whether we could renovate those facilities and still have a safe and secure and reliable facility for a fraction of the cost of a new facility.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. And now, Mr. Joyner, your response.
I'm for anything that can bring our state more reliable and more cost effective and also more efficient energy. So if nuclear can bring that, I'm for that. But there's one thing that I want to remind you of that I mentioned in my opening statement, and that's accountability. So the first thing that we must ensure is that those utility companies are utilizing all the money that they can without increasing rates and without coming to the ratepayers for more money to fund those projects. If they can get those federal subsidies, then yes, I'm for that. But at the end of the day, sometimes we have to, as ratepayers, we have to come up with some money to improve our grid. But the number one thing to me is that we use all of the resources that we can without having to do that. And also, I would be more apt to go for the refurbishment of those nuclear facilities rather than just building new ones, just because the utility companies are going to get more money from that. Whatever is going to be the cheapest and most effective option, while also being the safest and most reliable option, is the best thing and the most responsible thing that we can do for the ratepayers of Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. On to our next question. PSC members like to say Louisiana has some of the lowest electric rates in the country. While that is true, what they don't say is that due to our heat and humidity and poor housing stock, Louisiana has some of the nation's highest electric bills. That plus our high rate of poverty means Louisiana is considered an energy insecure state. Say an energy customer is disconnected for non-pay. It's 8 p.m. on a Sunday night, a hot summer night. The temperature is 90 degrees, and the customer calls you to have their service reconnected. What would you say? Mr. Joyner, your response first, please.
So this is a little bit of a difficult situation. Some of the situations you can get into in this area will be difficult, because if you start just allowing all these people to have their power turned back on, then the next thing you know, we won't have anyone paying their electric bills. However, there are extenuating circumstances. If someone is without power, it's 8 p.m. and it's 90 degrees, I'm going to take their phone call. I'm going to have a conversation with them. If they were not provided app notice, and if they had not worked out a plan with that utility company, I'm then going to turn around and I'm going to call the utility company, and I'm going to do everything I can to get their power turned back on. And then following that, I'm going to do everything that I can to work out a plan between the utility company and the ratepayer so that this doesn't happen again. But we have to be responsible at those things. We have to be responsible with the resources that we have and with the finances. But there are extenuating circumstances, and I understand that. And at the end of the day, we're all people. What we can do to help each other out, we need to try to do that. Sometimes it's more important than making a dollar. Sometimes it just comes into helping your neighbor out and doing the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Now, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you. Safety is always first, and I'm sure the utilities feel the same way. So when you have situations like that where someone can be in a dangerous situation due to their age or health or special treatments that are required, I think we all want to make sure that everybody is kept safe. So in that situation, I would ask the utility to turn back on the power, and then we would arrange for a series of discussions between the utility and the customer, and perhaps a debt management organization or a nonprofit that handles debt management situations and try to determine a way for that customer to pay down their bill and get back in good standing with the utility. So, I would also talk to that customer about the installation program. The utilities have installation programs to help ensure that the power that is generated and used in that home is more effectively used and more efficiently used. So we'd work with the utilities to better insulate that home, ensure that that homeowner is using less power, paying less in its utility costs, and hopefully keeping him or herself from finding him or herself in that situation in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. The combination of low cost concern for climate change and growing demand for sustainable energy by corporations and consumers has made solar and wind the fastest growing energy sources in America. Louisiana power companies defy this trend and remain heavily dependent on natural gas to make electricity. Will you insist that Louisiana electric companies test electricity markets and choose the most affordable fuel to make power for us? Mr. Atkins, your response is first.
Thank you. Yes, as I've stated from the beginning, I would encourage utilities to make their decisions based on the lowest cost, most reliable options available. That is our goal, to reduce cost and increase reliability. With respect to renewables, I think there's a reason why our power generation grid is made up of 72% natural gas, 20% nuclear, and 8% renewables. We're this epicenter of the Haynesville Shale. We have deeply abundant and reliable gas available to our markets. It's a logical fuel for us. The renewables, however, are less logical. Renewables make a lot of sense in certain areas. They make sense. The windmills make sense in the Midwest and in the Great Plains, where you have an abundance of wind and can operate those windmills at the most efficient and effective way. Solar makes sense in the Southwest, where you have an abundance of sunlight, less cloudy days, less humidity in the air. You get the most bang for your buck for the solar facility in the Southwest. Louisiana isn't particularly well suited for those, either the wind or the solar facilities. I mean, they can be effective here, but they are not at their optimal effectiveness, which means that they are not the most efficient and effective way to generate power. So therefore, when the utilities compare their costs to natural gas, the combined cycle gas turbine usually wins out.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Joyner.
Yeah, so we're a natural gas state. That's pretty clear to everyone, I would think. And so with that being said, the idea that we can just abandon natural gas and go to a large percentage of renewables, that's illogical at this point in time. However, I am for anything that will bring the ratepayers of Louisiana efficient, cost-effective, and reliable energy. So if renewables is an avenue that we can explore to get to that, I'm all for researching those areas. If that's solar, I'm all for putting funds into that to research those. Now, right now, solar and other renewables, they have a pretty large upfront cost. So the first thing we'd have to do is figure out how to mitigate that so that we're not just dumping a large amount of upfront cost on ratepayers. The second thing is there is a little bit of an issue with reliability on some of those renewables, especially in our state, with some of our weather and things like that. So we'd have to figure those things out. But in terms of research, I'm all for research in any area, especially in areas that provide an opportunity to benefit our ratepayers. So if those programs and those utilities can provide clean, cost-effective, reliable is a key part of that. If they can provide that, then I'm for researching those areas, and yes, I'm for implementing them.
Thank you. Now, gentlemen, we are moving on to our lightning round. You each will have 30 seconds to respond. Our first question. Commissioner Campbell investigated jail telephone companies and found that calls from prisons and jails cost 30 times more than calls made on the outside. The LPSC sets the rates for inmate telephone calls. Do you believe prison phone rates should be reduced? Mr. Atkins, you are first.
Thank you. Let's just be clear. I believe that everybody should be treated fairly and respectfully, including pretrial detainees. Of course, in Caddo Parish, most of those detainees are pre-trial. So they should be treated fairly and respectfully with respect to all the services that they receive. But in my view, the question is a bit out of date because these days, I mean, I've been reviewing the minutes from the Public Service Commission for the last 18 months, and I've seen no mention of rates. That's because the FCC now manages those rates in the state of Louisiana.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Joyner.
So I'm for tough on crime policy, and with that being said, there are certain things that when you do the crime and you go to jail, yes, it's not gonna be as easy as life on the outside. However, I'm also a believer in our justice system, and our justice system dictates that we are humane to those detainees and that they're innocent till proven guilty. And so we can't just provide astronomical rates and things like that to those people just because they're in prison. We need to be fair to them.
Thank you. Now for our second lightning question. Many rural water systems in North Louisiana need substantial upgrades to ensure plentiful, clean water, but they often don't have the money, won't raise rates, and refuse to merge with larger systems. What should the PSC do? Mr. Atkins, you are first.
Well, you're right. A lot of these rural water systems are small and inefficient, and they are not of sufficient scale to operate effectively. So I think that the only answer is to encourage, perhaps use the word force, these smaller systems to merge into a larger system where they can be more cost effective, they can gain economies of scale, and they can provide a better level of service and a more reliable level of service and a safer level of service to their customers.
Mr. Joyner.
I don't think we should force those smaller companies to merge with larger ones for one simple reason, and that's the fact that that's how we got to the monopoly that we have in our utility industry, and specifically the electrical utility industry that we have today. So I think the better way forward would to be explore the different options that those smaller water companies have. See if where we can get them money and see where we can help to provide a better service and a more reliable service to the people that they serve.
Thank you. It is time for candidate closing statements. Now, Mr. Joyner, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
As I said before, I know I'm young, but with me being young, I'm going to provide a new and fresh set of ideas and a fresh set of face into the Public Service Commission and into Louisiana politics as a whole. And I'm committed to serving the people of Louisiana. I'm committed to bringing them transparency and accountability on their utility rates. As a ratepayer, you deserve to know what your money's going towards, and you deserve to go to bed at night knowing that those utility companies are being responsible with your money and that they're providing the best service possible for you. If those things sound good and if you want change in Louisiana politics, I encourage you on May 16th and in early voting that is going on currently to vote for Aiden Joyner for Public Service Commissioner for District 5.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Now, Mr. Atkins, you also have 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, we've learned tonight that the situations faced by the Public Service Commission are very complex. These situations require difficult decisions to be made. Experience matters. It's important that people understand. It's important that a public service commissioner understands three main things. They need to understand the industries that they regulate. Earlier in my career, I worked in and around the electric utility space, so I have some fundamental understanding of that space. Two, they need to understand the constituents, because you've got to be able, if you're going to serve these people, you have to understand their wants and needs and desires. I've been a Caddo Parish Commissioner for 11 years. I've been elected 3 times. I've been reelected twice. And you don't get reelected to a role like the Caddo Parish Commission if you're not answering the phone, responding to text messages, and getting the job done. And lastly, I believe economics and finance are very important, as there will be large dollars being spent in North Louisiana in the coming years. I would appreciate your vote on May 16th. John Atkins.
Thank you, gentlemen. And that is all the time we have tonight. We want to say a big thank you again to all of our candidates for stopping by and to the organizations that help make this forum possible. Remember, early voting runs through this Saturday, May 9th, and Election Day is set for May 16th. For your local election headquarters, I'm Ashley Dowdy. Have a great night, everyone.